of burnout that has nothing to do with your workload? I call it high masking burnout. And if you have ever looked completely fine while falling apart inside, this one's for you. So I'm Noe of Rabbit Den Psychotherapy, and I know this one from the inside. So a little while ago, I was looking at an old photo of myself at 15, where from the mouth down, I'm smiling, but my eyes tell a different story. They're wide and kind of disengaged. On the outside, my life looked just fine. Good grades, never disrupting class, but behind the smile was unseen, intense efforting. I felt too weird and too much, and I buried all of it in overdoing. So, what does high masking burnout actually look like? Well, sometimes it looks exactly like this: a wide grin, eyes kind of fixed and staring, a person performing, "I'm okay," while inside they're pretzeling themselves into systems that were never built with their needs in mind. See, a lot of us learn early to hide the parts of us that would out us as different. And if we're capable enough, we get really good at channeling that capability into passing, into fitting in, until one day we just can't do it anymore. All that forcing, all that pushing through, all that marshaling of inner resources just to survive and achieve and do what's expected of us. We do it until we can't, and then the bottom falls out. Overwhelm takes over, and we sink into exhaustion, into burnout. So how did we come to do this in the first place? Well, here's the spoiler. There's nothing wrong with you. If you've come to live in a way that overrides your own nervous system's needs, that doesn't mean you're broken. These patterns developed for a good reason, to help you belong, to stay connected, to succeed, or to avoid rejection. See, we're deeply social creatures. Our well-being is shaped by our relationships, by our sense of belonging. So of course, we're sensitive to cues of acceptance and rejection. Of course, we adapt in response. The problem isn't the adapting. The problem is when adapting turns into self-abandonment. Now, if you're highly sensitive or neurodivergent or different in some other way, fitting in can take an enormous amount of effort. You might learn to suppress the behaviors that draw attention, to override your sensory needs, to anticipate everyone else's expectations before they even voice them. Work harder, than everyone around you, just to make it look like everything comes easily. So researchers actually have a name for this. They call it masking or camouflaging. And there's a well-known study. Laura Hull and her colleagues interviewed autistic adults about what camouflaging felt like from the inside. And again, people described it as physically and mentally exhausting, leaving them feeling disconnected from who they really were. And this isn't only an autism story. A lot of us learn to perform versions of ourselves that seem more acceptable, more capable, more normal. So we learn to read the room. We learn what earns approval, what makes people uncomfortable, and then we learn not to do certain things. In internal family systems, one of the main modalities that I use as a therapist, we'd say these adaptations are the work of protective parts. When the world signals to us that some part of us is wrong or too much or not enough, a part steps in who's a protector, an expert people pleaser, or an overachiever, a part exquisitely attuned to everyone else's needs and moods. And here's the thing, these parts, they aren't trying to make you suffer. They're trying to keep you safe, to keep you connected, out of trouble. And sometimes they get extraordinarily good at their job. So the strategies that once helped us belong can become exhausting to maintain over time. We spend years overriding hunger, fatigue, sensory overwhelm, that still small inner voice that says, this is too much for me right now. And eventually, the external pressure doesn't even need to be there anymore because we carry it inside us. So that's part of why this kind of burnout can feel so confusing. Because from the outside, you might look like someone who's coping beautifully, getting things done, showing up, taking care of everyone else. But underneath, your system might be spending an enormous amount of energy just maintaining that performance. Now, the problem was never that you adapted. Adaptation is one of the most remarkable things human beings do. The problem is when an adaptation that once helped you survive starts requiring you to live in chronic disconnection from yourself. And here's something worth knowing. Years of practice pushing through means years of practice in overriding your body's own signals. And practice matters. The brain is what in psychology we call plastic. It changes in response to experience across your whole life. Which means if you've spent years practicing disconnection, those patterns can be genuinely hard to shift. But, and here's the hopeful part, it also means you can practice something new. That very same capacity that made you so good at pushing through can, over time, help you get just as good at listening to yourself. Not overnight, not through force, but through practice. So let's talk about that practice. Here are 3 small ways to start interrupting the push-through pattern. So, number 1, before you push through, pause. Next time you catch yourself thinking, I just need to push through, stop. Even for 10 seconds, 5 seconds even. Ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me right now? Maybe all you notice at first is a tightness in your jaw, a fluttering in your stomach, maybe your shoulders kind of shrugging up to your ears. If there's urgency, notice where you feel it. And if you notice numbness instead, or you don't seem to notice anything, that's okay too. You are rebuilding a relationship, and relationships start with listening. Number 2, orient towards safety. Our nervous systems are excellent at scanning for danger. You can use that exact same skill to notice safety instead. So you might try looking around your room right now, wherever you are, and just let your eyes land on 3 things that feel, if not safe, even just slightly pleasant. Like might be light coming through your window, or a favorite mug, or a tree moving outside. See if you can stay with each one for a breath or 2. This isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about reminding your nervous system that alongside intensity, there can also be glimmers of safety. Number 3, look for 1% more ease. When you're overwhelmed, the question of how do I calm down, can feel just completely out of reach. So try asking something smaller instead. What would give me just 1% more ease right now? And that might be taking off your shoes, having a glass of water, or opening a window, deciding that one last task can actually wait until tomorrow. Burnout recovery, doesn't come from one dramatic breakthrough. It's built through hundreds of these small moments that teach your nervous system, my signals matter. These 3 practices won't undo years of survival strategies overnight, but they can start rebuilding trust between you and your body. And that's really where lasting change begins. So, if any of this landed for you, if you recognized yourself in that photo or in that grin that doesn't quite reach the eyes, I'm glad you're here. If this kind of thing is useful to you, hitting subscribe means you won't miss the next video. I'll be back every few weeks with more on this territory: burnout, overgiving, and finding your way back home to yourself. And if you want something to take with you today, I made a free guide called The Overgiver's Nervous System Reset: More Tools for Recognizing and Interrupting High Masking Burnout. It's pinned in the comments below and linked in the description too. And if you want to go deeper than a guide can take you, that's what I'm here for at Rabbit Den Psychotherapy. That link's below as well. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.